Hey guys, welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid. Today we're going to show you how to root grapevines from cuttings. So if you have at least one grapevine, or if you know somebody that has a grapevine and you'd like to create more grapevines, we're going to show you how to do that. All you need is a grapevine, some scissors, some soil. We're going to show you the whole process. And we're making this video down here, of course, where our grapevines are by our man-made forest. I wanted to show you guys that. You can see it in the background. We planted all those trees from saplings we dug up along our wood line and put down here. So that's a beautiful backdrop we have today. I want to point out my safety glasses. I'm not afraid I'm going to poke myself in the eyes with my scissors, but you might remember another video we made about how to deal with gnats. They're everywhere right now, and so I've just gotten used to when I'm out in the mornings gardening, I wear these so that way I can keep working despite the gnats. Because as you know, if you're messing around with soil and dirt and a gnat goes in your eye, you don't want to be sticking a dirty finger in your eye because it just made your problem worse. So with no further ado, we're going to get started. Honey, let's give them some close-up shots over here so they can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, for the time being, we've got our grapevines in these cages we made out of 2x4-inch fencing because we have a lot of deer here. We started with 3. They're spaced apart more than we would like, and so what we want to do is start some new vines growing that we're going to plant in the middle of these vines so that we have a better starting vineyard here. So what I want to do is take my vine, and we bought these at Lowe's 2 years ago for $9.99 in like a 2.5 quart pot, and they were maybe a foot tall. You can see the original vine there, and over the last 2 years they've done really well. So they are perfectly suitable for rooting. So you want to have at least 10 inches worth of vine, but even more importantly is you want to have 2 to 3 good node points beneath the surface of your soil. So I'm going to want to have 1, 2, 3 at least. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to take my scissors. You can use shears. I'm going to cut just above this node. Are you getting a good shot of this, honey, where I'm cutting? I got to move the leaf.
Yeah.
You want to be just above a node. Cut it off at an angle with sharp, clean scissors or pruning shears. Now, folks, we have pruning shears, and I'm using scissors because I wanted to kind of point out to you that all this stuff we do doesn't have to be complex, and you don't have to have a big piece of property like we do to do it. Some of the most beautiful gardens I've been seeing lately have been in town. At the present moment, and I've mentioned this before, I work as a courier's assistant. I'm in town a lot. I see some of the most beautiful gardening and get some of the best gardening ideas from people who are growing plants in buckets on patios with 200 square feet of space available. They have the most robust gardens I've seen. So if you have scissors, that's all you need. Okay, that's why I'm using scissors. Now, come on with me. What I'm gonna do, we're gonna do 3. And I like to keep everything kind of even here. I mean, honey, give them like a panoramic view. Flash around and show them all the way up through there. We consider our horticultural activities artwork. We've got a tree line up there, and then we're doing some amazing things in the back. Okay, swing it back around. My point is, I'm just kind of anal when it comes to, and this drives my wife nuts, but about like, and maybe it's because I was in the military, but about dress right dress, things have to be kind of uniform. So I'm taking 3 cuttings from 3 different plants because I want all of my plants to be uniform. This is terrible because Mother Nature isn't always uniform. But I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to cut this tendril. I'm not going to rip it because I don't want to injure the plant. Now we're going to come down here and get our 3rd cutting. Got a nice long cutting, and as you can see, this one has some grapes on it. You see that, honey? Can you get a good view of the grapes? Now about an hour ago, let's see, it's 6:42, about an hour ago, or no, it's 7:42, I was opening the blinds in the dining room, and I pulled them up, and there were 3 deer down here, like 2 big does and a little fawn, and they were sticking their nose in here. Looks like they were able to jerk this thing out enough to where they got some of our grapes. So let's see, 1, 2, I want that one under there too, so I'm gonna come down here and get from here, and then I'm gonna cut off these tendrils just to liberate it from the fence, and now I've got my cuttings. So let's go over here, and I'm going to show you how simple this is. So when it comes to soil, and the gnats aren't so bad right now, you can go to Lowe's, and again, this is for those of you who might live in town. Maybe you have limited space. Once your grapes take root, if you wanted to put them in a bucket, grapes are excellent plants to grow in a bucket. Make sure to drill holes around the bottom so that your excessive water can drain out. But you don't have to have a bunch of acreage to do this. You can grow them in a bucket from your balcony and they'll live there for years as long as you want them to live. But with your soil, you can go to Lowe's and buy topsoil or potting soil for $2 or $3 a bag. Now, I dug this up from a we call it a honey spot, one of our honey spots. So I don't need to buy soil. I've got plenty of it out here on the homestead. But I want to point something out. We used to try to root a lot of cuttings in soil that we took from what is now a garden spot that was once a rabbit pen. We thought, well, the animal droppings make excellent fertilizer. This is going to work great. Well, what we found out is that the rabbit droppings have a little too much nitrogen in them for rooting plants and for young plants. Nitrogen is an excellent fertilizer for well-rooted, more mature plants, but if you're doing cuttings to get roots or you're starting new plants, avoid too much oxygen or too much nitrogen, okay? So, I'm just going to do one. I'll do the rest later. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to show you how to do this. And you're probably saying, wow, you got all your stuff in a sled. Guys, we found that a sled makes an excellent wheelbarrow. We buy these things in the winter, we sleigh right down our hill, and in the spring and the summer, we use them to drag stuff around, around the homestead. So, I'm going to take my grapevine, okay? I'm going to want to make sure, I said 2 or 3 nodes below the soil surface, and as you see, that's going to work out just fine. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 beneath the soil. Now I'm measuring this because I want to make sure this goes down far enough in the soil to see that all 3 nodes are submerged. So I'm going to come down here and cut this off a little bit more to make sure that I can get this 3rd node beneath the soil, okay? Now I'm simply going to cut off the excess leaves here. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to cut off that tendril. There's going to be a little node there. And this is what we're going to submerge. I'm going to leave some top leaves and this top tendril because this May and this tendril will catch onto a stick I'm going to use to prop this thing up. Different plants root different ways. For instance, when we do a lot of hardwood cuttings from various trees, we remove all the foliage except for maybe one on the top because we don't want the plant's energy to be wasted feeding a leaf. We want it to go into making the roots. Grapevines root much quicker than hardwood trees. So we are going to leave a few leaves on top so that the photosynthesis process can take place, which will help with the rooting, but it'll also help with a healthier plant. Now, from here, and here's a little secret. You can Google this. You've probably heard about rooting with willow. The willow bush and the willow tree both will root very quickly. All you got to do is stick them in water. They have a natural rooting hormone in them that appears naturally in nature, of course. They will also help other plants root. So we're not going to use a rooting hormone. We do have a rooting hormone, and we have used rooting hormone, and we're not knocking rooting hormone. But I need a stick that I'm going to use to prop this thing up and tie it off to anyway, so why not use one that has a natural rooting hormone in it, okay? So let's give them a close-up, honey. Show them what I'm doing here. Into the top of the pot, can you see that? I'm going to use this stick basically just to create a hole for my grape cutting here, so I have a place to stick it, because I don't want to push down through the soil with this, because this is a much more tender piece of plant here than this willow cutting. And if I take any roots off of this willow cutting, they'll come back within a day or two. I mean, these things root so quickly. So I've got my hole, and then I simply place my grape, and I see that I've got 1, 2, almost 3 of the nodes submerged in the soil, but I'm going to guarantee that all 3 are submerged in the soil because I'm simply going to add more soil. Okay, now the roots on the grapevine don't just form at the nodes, they'll form in between the nodes as well, but by having at least 3 nodes buried, I know that I've got a better chance of success. And I want to point out too, guys, not all of our plants that we try to root. Many of them do not take root. However, many of them do. And so we'll always make sure to do enough cuttings that even after a failure rate that might be higher than we're comfortable with, we still get plenty of plants that root so we can continue to propagate our plants, okay? Remember, you don't drown because you fall in water. You drown because you stay there. failure when you're dealing with anything is just part of success. If you're not failing enough, you're not trying hard enough, and you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You've got to fail to succeed. It's like Thomas Edison said when they asked him how did he figure out how to create the light bulb. He said, well, I first found out 10,000 ways how not to create the light bulb, okay? He just didn't mention it. He probably stole Nikola Tesla's ideas. Okay, sorry about that. Now, my grape cutting is fully submerged up to 3 nodes. I'm going to take my willow cutting. You can use a stick, you can use a bamboo. If I wasn't using this, I'd use a poplar stick. We have a lot of poplar trees, and as you probably know, they shed their leaves, or they shed their branches quite a bit, so we never have a shortage of sticks. Now I'm going to stick this down here in the soil just enough to where it's stable. Okay, I'm going to turn that branch that's growing out like that, and then I'm going to take just a little bit of twine, cut off a small length, and I'm just going to lightly, very lightly secure this grape cutting to the willow cutting. And I'm going to do it just beneath the node, and I'm not going to tie it tight enough to harm the plant, okay? I'm going to do a double tie, simple double knot here, so that this twine stays here, and that'll hold up the plant. Now, from this point, I mean, we're almost done. You see how simple this is. I'm going to water this soil very, very well. And now, guys, if you're doing this on a balcony, you can have like a Tupperware container, some sort of tray under here to catch your excess water so you don't get mud everywhere. And I will be putting this in a tray when I put it in its final location. But now the water, the soil is very well soaked. Now from here, from this point, all I'm gonna do, well, I'm gonna do 2 more after we stop recording here, but now from this point, I'm going to put it in a shaded area where it will not be in direct sunlight. There are 2 huge mistakes people make when they root plants. Number 1 is they water them too much, and number 2 is they put them in direct sunlight, and that will burn up the plant and it will kill it. So, and we've made both of those mistakes. We've learned through trial and error ourselves. So I'm going to put this in a Tupperware container on the back porch that's fully covered, and we have a rack there we put plants on, so the direct sunlight will never hit it. And this will take maybe 3 or 4 weeks. It might take as long as 2 months, but it's mid-June now, and a benefit we have is that by fall, this will certainly be rooted. We'll be able to get this in the ground, so it'll start rooting, taking up root in the ground, and then it'll go through the dormancy period this winter, and by next spring, we're gonna have a brand new grapevine that's gonna come up, and we'll get to enjoy its growth for the entire season. So if you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it, please subscribe to our channel, Homesteading Off the Grid, and we'll see you next time.